Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Priest by James Eggebeen. Narrated by B.J. Harrison. Chapter 1. Calling Fire. Sulrad. Sulrad huddled in the shadows of the common room of the small house he shared with his parents, that stood alone beside a lightly traveled path to the woods that encroached on it. The chill evening wind whipped through the cracks in the wall and sucked the heat from his body, the full moon overhead doing little to chase away the darkness. None of that mattered. He'd been anticipating this night for half a moon. Tonight, there was nothing he desired more than fire, and the light and heat it would bring. His fingers clutched the stub of a taper he had secretly stolen from his mother's drawer that was more yellow than white, evidence of the lack of care taken when his mother had rendered the fat before dipping the frayed wick into it. The wick itself had been woven from wool stolen from the blanket Sulrad slept beneath on the cold nights of winter. When he protested, his father had taken the strap to him and told him to be silently grateful he even had a blanket. Fire would change that. His 13th name day had come, and with it the gift that would change his life. It stirred inside him, but had yet to awaken. Tonight would be the night. He just knew it. Tonight he would call fire, and fire would make him a wizard. Wizards were respected and showered with adoration, and dare he imagine gold? He would bring fire, and the fire would bring him a better life. He stared at the taper and called up the image of a flame, not the raging fire that filled the hearth when there was wood enough, but the gentle, inviting flame of a candle that shed its light into the night to drive away evil spirits. The flame would be a digit in height, a tiny yellow tongue that would dance in the dark as if afraid to touch the wick that gave it life. Words came to him, strange words, a phrase he had never heard spoken. He shivered. Those words held power, a gift from the gods. His lips moved silently, forming the alien words, his tongue unfamiliar with the shaping of them. "Incendio, igneous," he mouthed. Nothing happened. No sudden burst of light, no warming flame to light his home. He stilled his heart as it thumped out its excitement, and he peered at the taper. The tip of the wick bore a faint orange glow, as if it had just been blown out and the wick was still hot. "Incendio, igneous." Sulrad spoke the words softly so as not to wake his parents. This time, as he uttered the words, something stirred inside his chest. Yes, these were more than just words. He'd touched something he had never touched before. Magic. The taper flared to life, momentarily blinding him by the sudden flash of light. He blinked, letting his eyes grow accustomed to the glare of the tiny flame that flickered before him. He couldn't believe it. He had done magic, lit the taper with no more than words. Could he do it again? He leaned forward to blow out the taper, but something stopped him. The flame was intriguing, beckoning him to stare into it, taunting him with the secrets it might reveal if he had the ability to understand. Sulrad stared at the flame, holding his eyes wide, afraid to blink lest he miss something important. His eyes grew dry, yet he didn't blink. The flame danced. The tip of the tongue licked at the darkness, as if it could wash away the shadows and replace them with light. A thread of smoke rose from the flame, the folds of gray twisting and turning as they vanished into the stillness of the night. Sulrad blinked. The smoke had begun to order itself. It snaked in the air, creating a globe of gray smoke, lit from within by the tiny flickering flame beneath. As it grew more and more solid, an image formed in its center. The image coalesced to form the outline of a girl, barely more than a child. She had long dark hair and a round face. Sulrad had never seen anyone like her. All the girls he knew were thin and gaunt, the outline of the bones evident in their faces. This girl was different. She peered outward from the smoke. The same full moon that shone on him illuminated a vast expanse of neatly trimmed lawn that led to a garden of flowers and hedges. Behind her was a brick wall bearing a sigil and an open window. He'd seen that before in town on festival days. She was staring off into the air as if looking over her shoulder. Then she gasped and looked right at him. "Who are you?" The words came to him almost as if she had spoken aloud. "I'm called Sulrad. How can you see me?" she asked. "Are you a wizard?" "I only just called fire. Who are you? Where are you? Are you a wizard?" He had so many questions. Surely here was someone who commanded magic, someone who could teach him how to become a wizard. "I'm not going to tell you who I am, not until we know each other better." The girl looked off to the side with an angry look. "I'm just talking. It's not hurting anyone." She paused, then continued. "It's just fire." She turned back to Sulrad. "I have to go." "Don't go. You didn't tell me your name." "That's right. I didn't." She reached for something and cast it at Sulrad. The image vanished. The globe disintegrated with a pop, and the spindly thread of smoke resumed its climb toward the ceiling. Sulrad stared at the smoke. What had just happened? Who was the girl? She was well fed. The cut of her clothes was precise, her garments layered and clean. Could she be a royal? Was that why she had dismissed him? Did she fear him? He had to talk to her. She was the only person he knew who had magic. He concentrated on the smoke, trying to entice the image back into existence. The smoke wavered once more, creating the sphere, but there was no girl, only walls of stone that he could not break through. Had it been a fluke? Had he imagined her? "What are you doing?" His mother, Toval, appeared as if from nowhere. Her face was set in a scowl. The scarf she wore to bed was askew on her head, with strands of her black hair protruding at odd angles. She bore a spoon in her hand, the one carved from the branch of the tree that had once grown behind the house that had been struck down by lightning one stormy night. His father had carved the spoon from the wood of that tree, claiming it was a gift from Ran and meant for a special purpose. That spoon was not used for cooking. It was reserved for what his father called correction. His heart raced at the sight of it. He held himself perfectly still. Any attempt to avoid what was coming would only make matters worse. The spoon flashed out, smacking Sulrad on the back of the hand. He jerked at the pain, the motion extinguishing the flame, plunging him into darkness. He'd flinched. He'd tried not to, but it hurt too much. His mother was angrier than usual tonight. Was it the fire? "Go back to your pallet and stop this foolishness," she said. "Do you want to burn down the only home we have?" This time the spoon caught him on the head. It hurt. It made him feel dizzy. He should have held still, but he hadn't. He shoved the taper into his pocket and crawled for his pallet beside the hearth, hoping Toval had spent her anger, fearful that she had not. He drew the blanket over himself, doubling it up around his head, in the hopes that if Toval was not yet finished with her admonition, the blanket would prevent him from sporting bruises to accuse him of his misdeeds. He controlled his breathing, trying to calm himself. "Yes, Mother," he muttered. Sometimes accepting her admonition worked to soothe her. If not, would she continue to beat him or summon his father? "What's happening?" Merton's voice was filled with sleep, but that would not stop him should he choose to take up the cause. Merton never used the spoon. No, that was reserved for Toval. Merton used the strap, or a switch. Sulrad was certain that Merton enjoyed the sounds they made when they struck his naked flesh. He held his breath. "Your son," Toval said, "is wasting perfectly good tapers and trying to burn our home down." "Remind me to beat him in the morning. I'm too tired to do it now." Sulrad slept fitfully, anticipating the beating that had been promised in the morning. In the gloom just before dawn, he rose. It was too early for his parents to be awake. They were not the type to waste a taper on an early riser. Sulrad took a battered and rusted tin from the shelf that contained the ground oats he and his father had gleaned from the fields after the harvesters departed. On the last day of foraging, one of the landowner's men had caught them and beat them, lashing out with his staff to leave bruises on Sulrad and his father both. Merton had cowered like a dog before the men, like a frightened dog, begging for mercy, even as Sulrad stood silent and took his beating like a man. Afterwards, Merton had made it into a lesson for Sulrad about the sin of gluttony, and how one should never eat more than was absolutely necessary. But Sulrad knew better. Merton had never been shamed in front of his son, and took his frustration out on Sulrad, justifying it as a lesson in piety, espousing the virtues of poverty, and how it brought a man close to the spirit that was one with everything. Ran, he explained, judged all, and rewarded the faithful for their acts. No doubt on this occasion they had taken more than was their due, and it was only right that they had been punished. "If Ran rewards the faithful," Sulrad had asked, "then why are we always hungry?" The rage that had been levied at Sulrad at that simple request was enough to teach him never again to question his father's words about Ran. Not when Merton carved the branch of a dead tree into the crude image of a wizened old man and placed it on the mantel, proclaiming that Ran now watched over the family and their every move. Not when Merton droned on unendingly, giving thanks for a meal, barely able to quell the grumbling in Sulrad's stomach. Not even when Merton forced Sulrad to his knees before the misshapen piece of wood, and whipped him with a belt as punishment for the sins of the flesh. Merton was a true believer, even if Sulrad had grave doubts that one as powerful and all-knowing as Ran cared one whit what he or his family did. His only hope to avoid another beating was to atone for his sins. In the past, when he had prepared the morning meal before Merton and Toval awoke, he had been able to dodge a beating. If not, then he would take his beating like a man and hide the pain. A rooster crowed as the pre-dawn light gave it sight. Sulrad had the meager fire lit, and the gruel was bubbling nicely, when he noticed something was amiss. Usually, Toval was awake first, his mother dutifully preparing the morning meal for his father, but today she was nowhere to be found, and Merton was still asleep, even as the sun broached the horizon, sending the full light of its glory to chase away the shadows. "Father?" Sulrad knelt beside Merton and gently shook him. "Morning meal is ready." Merton rolled over, his face set in a scowl as he blinked the sleep from his eyes.
"I'm not eating."
"But I've prepared the morning meal, ground oats just as you like, with a bit of honey. I was able to scrape some from the jar."
"I told you I'm not eating. Don't you hear well?"
Merton turned his back on Sulrad and pulled the blanket tighter around him. "Where's Mother?" Sulrad asked.
"While you cowered beneath your blanket, she left. She's off to live with her sister. Said we weren't fit to be around any longer."
"Gone? Why?"
"Why?"
Merton spun around and lurched to his feet.
He grabbed Sulrad by the shirt and lifted him from the ground. "You have to ask me why? After that stunt you pulled last night, what were you thinking?"
Sulrad drew a breath to answer, but decided this was one of those times where any response would only enrage his father.
"I suppose you think you're some sort of wizard now, that we're going to bow down to you and treat you like your excrement don't stink."
"No."
"Wizardry is a sin worse than gluttony, greed, or the rest. How do you think Rand will reward you for your acts?" he screamed.
Before Sulrad could answer, Merton shoved him to his knees and reached for the leather strap. As the strap struck him again and again, Sulrad prayed that the blows would stop, that the magic would grow strong in him and give him an avenue of escape. He offered his prayer not to Ran, but to whatever spirit the great wizards paid homage to. But even that felt hollow, as if no one truly cared what befell one such as him. Chapter 2. Unlovable Child. Sulrad. It had been days since Toval ran off, but the welts on Sulrad's legs and back were still tender and embarrassing, the angry red proclaiming his unworthiness to anyone who might catch a glimpse. The strong scent of lye bit at his nose, even as the powerful soap burned the flesh from his hands. His skin was permanently raw and red, not only from washing clothes, but from scrubbing the floor with steaming hot water every morning. He almost didn't mind. It gave him time to think about the girl he'd seen in the fire. He'd tried to forget her, put her out of his mind, but he couldn't. Would she befriend him if he could control his magic? He had to find out, try to reach her once more. But not now, not here, not where Merton might see. He bent his back to his task. It was his task now. Merton had made that clear.
"You run her off, you take her place."
Merton peeled off his sweat-stained shirt and tossed it in the wash basin. He wrestled with his boots and drew off his stockings, tossing the foul-smelling rags in with the shirt.
"See that you get them clean."
"When is she coming home?" Sulrad kept his face turned toward his work. Eye contact with Merton seemed only to enrage him since Toval had run off.
"She's not coming back. Says you're an abomination. Says you're not fit to be around. Who could blame her? Who could love someone who toys with the dark arts, with no care for the souls around him? I'll put you out myself if you don't earn your keep. Ran is vengeful, but he does have mercy. Keep scrubbing, and maybe one day he'll see fit to bless you once again." "I'll try, Father."
Merton leveled a kick at Sulrad's backside, but without his boot it was only half-hearted, and Sulrad managed to stay on his knees.
Do more than try.
Yes, father. The boy attacked the floor with renewed vigor, whether he believed in Rand's mercy or not. "Oi, anyone home?" a voice called from the doorway.
"Come in and enjoy Rand's blessing," Merton answered.
The woman who stepped into the room was tall and thin, and had shortly cropped hair. Her resemblance to Sulrad's mother always gave Sulrad pause, even though his mother's sister only visited on rare occasions, usually only to complain about Tovel's poor choice of a bondmate. "Welcome, Kalura. Have you brought news of my mother?" Sulrad asked.
"You have no mother."
Kalura worked up a mouthful of spittle and launched it at Sulrad before continuing.
"You lost your mother when you made a pact with the demons of magic. I hope it was worth it."
Sulrad wiped the spittle from his face. "I made no pact with anyone." He stood. "How is she? Even if she cares not for me, I care for her."
"You do you? Well, she doesn't care for you."
Kalura turned to Merton.
"You neither. What sort of man lets his own son deal in the dark arts? I thought you was a pious man. How could you let this happen?"
"What do you expect me to do?" Merton demanded.
"Whip it out of him?"
"Better dead with your soul intact than lose it to the demons of darkness."
"Ran may yet show mercy toward my son."
The words sounded hollow.
"No matter,"
Kalura said.
"I've come for her things."
Merton stepped between Kalura and the dresser.
"You're not taking anything. She'll see that she was wrong. She always does. Give her a bit of time and she'll come running back home. It's not like she hasn't done this before."
"You really want to do this?" Kalura asked. "You going to make me get my man and come all the way back here?"
"You're not taking anything."
Merton reached for a knife from the table.
"I mean it."
Kalura stood her ground for a handful of heartbeats, then raised her hands and stepped back. "Suit yourself. But when I return, you will have put this silly notion out of your head. She's not coming back." She turned and spat at Sulrad once more. "Never!" The next morning, while Merton was out gathering wood and Sulrad was busy scrubbing the floors, the door flew open without so much as a knock. Sulrad froze, dripping brush in hand. Framed in the doorway stood a man dressed in a sleeveless leather vest with bands around his biceps. His light blonde hair was tied back in a queue that reached halfway down his back. Bands of gold and silver secured the hair in place.
"If you know what's good for you, you'll stay out of the way."
The man stepped inside and positioned himself beside the open door. His hand went to the hilt of a knife that was easily as long as Sulrad's forearm. Sulrad recognized the man as one of his mother's relatives. That side of the family had shunned them for as long as he could remember. His heart beat faster. If his mother's relative were here, she might be here as well. He held his breath, waiting. He was right. His mother walked through the door, brushing aside the large man. "Ma, you're back!" He rushed toward her, but the man stepped into his path.
"No, she's not."
He drew his knife and folded his arms across his massive chest. The blade came to rest against a straining bicep. "Don't touch him, Pern," Tovel said. "He may be in league with the demons of darkness, but he's still my son." It heartened Sulrad that his mother was sticking up for him. Perhaps she had changed her mind, accepted what he had become. Maybe there was still hope.
"Why'd you bring me, then?"
Pern asked. "In case Merton puts up a fight," Tovel said. "He's not my blood, and he's not telling me how to live my life. He and the boy can worship that foolish hunk of wood if they want, but not me. Not any more."
If you hurry, we can be gone before he gets back,
Pern said. I'll take my time, and you'll stand there. Or do I need to tell Kalura you don't listen?
I listen. Just don't take orders.
The big man sheathed his knife and stepped back beside the door.
Get what you came for and let's be gone. I don't need trouble. Not that I can't handle it. I just don't need it.
Merton won't be trouble, Toval said. What sort of man puts his faith in a hunk of wood he carved himself? As if the mention of his name had summoned him, Merton strode through the door. He clutched the hatchet in his hand he had been using to chop wood for the fire. Sulrad drew a breath. Would Merton's arrival help calm his mother's ire, or would it inflame it? Merton and Toval often argued, especially about Ran, but they always made up. Why should this time be any different? They would settle things between them, and Toval would stay.
"What's going on here?"
Merton demanded.
"We don't need any trouble from you."
Pern reached for his knife.
"The lady is just picking up what rightly belongs to her, and then we'll be on our way."
"She's not your lady. She's my woman." Merton raised the hatchet and took a step toward the man. Sulrad tensed and backed away. He wanted no part of this fight. Pern was simply there to scare Merton. That was the reason he gave, but Sulrad knew violence could erupt at the slightest thing. He hoped there would be no bloodshed. His mother had already scolded him once in that regard.
"Don't make me hurt you, little man,"
Pern said. He was a head taller than Merton.
"Hurt me?"
Merton shifted his weight onto his hind foot and drew the hatchet back.
"Get out of my house, you snutch!"
He threw the hatchet at Pern's chest. Pern hopped backward. The hatchet sliced through his vest and opened a gash in his chest. Pern's hand went to his chest. For a moment, Sulrad thought the big man had been beaten, but he raised his hands to his lips, licked his own blood from it, and smiled. He raised his knife, taking a step toward Merton.
"Don't say I didn't warn you."
Sulrad froze. He wanted to rush to save his father, but he knew that would only make matters worse. Trying to intervene between Merton and Toval when they fought usually ended with him being beaten. If the man killed his father, who would take care of him? Toval had made it clear she wanted nothing to do with him. Was he about to become homeless, orphaned, destitute? Before he could decide what to do, his mother intervened. "Don't kill him," she said. "Someone has to take care of the boy, and it isn't going to be me."
"I could take them both out," Pern said. "Save you trouble in the long run."
"No, I told you, don't kill anyone. I just want this over."
"As you wish."
Pern tossed the knife in the air, caught it by the blade, and hurled it at Merton. The blade flew through the air with agonizing slowness, tumbling on its axis, the hilt and blade exchanging places. The hilt slammed into Merton's head, making a wet sound. Sulrad let out a sigh of relief as Merton wobbled and collapsed onto the floor. "Pern!" Toval threw him a look that could have curdled milk.
"He's alive," Pern said. "Going to have a whale of a headache when he wakes up, but he's alive."
"Get over here and make yourself useful, then." Toval opened a drawer and removed a few items of clothes she owned, handing them to Pern. "Out. I want to have a word with my son," she said.
Pern said, "Don't be long. I'm not waiting all afternoon in the hot sun for you."
"Do as you're told, and you won't have to." Sulrad realized that this might be the last time he saw Toval. He had to try, show her that he wasn't evil. He took a step toward her. "Mother, please." Toval held her hands out as if to ward him off. His heart sank. "I'll not embrace you," she said. Instead, she knelt down and touched Merton's face. Your dad is going to wake soon. When he does...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?